I begin researching just how many missing people actually do pick up and start over with a new identity. It's really not an easy topic to nail down, but my search quickly turns up to recent examples of men here in Canada who did just that. In one case, someone spotted a man's missing picture and connected it with someone he knew by another name. Turned out, the man didn't want to be in touch with his former friends and family. He'd left his old life for a reason. The other case involves a man on Canada's East Coast who used the identity of a deceased child here on the island and was only discovered after his sudden death of a heart attack. So, it happens. But could it have happened in this case? How hard is it to get a new identity? Turns out there is a company on the mainland that promises just this service. It takes me some time to connect with a man named Anton. And when I do, technical trouble. He can't hear my voice.
I could type my questions and then you could simply respond.
So we carry on with me typing questions in a chat and he responding.
Okay, Laura. Okay, you can type and I'll talk. We offer anonymous living and new identity. We have the ability to help you basically restart your life.
I begin by asking why people typically come to him looking for a new identity. He responds with the story of a woman he once helped. A woman who had testified against her Eastern European mobster husband. Her home country didn't offer a witness protection program, so she turned to this company for help. But in general, their clients tend to be middle-aged, older men.
Really, they're sometimes just unhappy with their life. Their family situation hasn't gone well. They've had a failed relationship or they're having a hard time getting past it and moving on. And somehow they feel that by changing their identity, they would, they can somehow leave that in their past, their former life, and start a new identity, and that everything will be kind of better by just changing identity. Their life or their situation will be better. I've dealt with a few cases where the person wanted to change their identity, and it was basically to escape their family because so much was expected of them. Okay, and they felt like they had disappointed their family, whether it be school or whether it be jobs or, whatever. They felt they'd been a disappointment and that they really felt like they just needed a new start and they wanted to leave their family behind them. And that's the motivation for them, wanting to change their identity. I mean, it is possible that, and I do believe that some people, they just, all of a sudden, they feel overwhelmed and they just feel like the only way I can, get past this, this kind of block in my life is by changing my identity and reinventing myself. And I do believe there are people like that. If you do that, like you change your identity and you start over again, it's really hard. It takes a lot of discipline. You have to leave everybody you knew, all the people you ever met, everything behind you, okay? And start over again. And if you can just imagine what that's like, it's really, really hard. So there's a lot of people, I don't believe that cases where people they just said, when they picked up and left. I'm really, in my professional opinion, I think that's really, really difficult to do. I don't think it's probable that they did that.
He tells me most of the work they do in this area involves clients who invest in a new citizenship in a foreign country and then change their identities. It's an expensive proposition. It costs hundreds of thousands of dollars. And it normally takes 18 months to 3 years to get that new citizenship. The men whose cases I'm exploring don't have anywhere near this level of resources, not even close. I ask him about simply assuming someone else's identity, like the legendary Frank Abagnale of Catch Me If You Can fame.
A number of years ago, it was possible. If you wanted to get a new ID, okay, you would start off with you need a birth certificate, right? So you need a birth certificate of somebody who had been born, but had never gone on to apply for, let's say, a social insurance number or a driver's license, etc. They had just acquired a birth certificate. And how you did that was basically you would go to a graveyard, okay, and you would go to the children's section of the graveyard. And in the children's section of the graveyard, you would find a tombstone of a child that was approximately your age or the age you wanted to be. And you write down the information. And on the tombstone, you'd be looking for date of birth, and then you'd be looking of the day of the death. You'd want a child or the person you're looking at, the tombstone you're looking at, you'd want it to be within a year, okay? So let's say the baby was born in 1960, January, and deceased in September 1960. That would be perfect. So what you do next is you write down that information. So basically all you have is the child's name, you have the date of birth and the date that they died, okay? Then you go, let's say from 1960, you go to the library and you'd ask to see the newspapers from 1960. So you look back in the microfiche from 1960. So basically you'd be looking from January 1960, around the time the child or the deceased child was born, and you'd start looking for birth notices. Once you've gone to the birth notices, you'll most likely find an announcement of birth. And the announcement reads something like this. Baby David Jones was born January 2nd, 1960 to the happy parents, Martha and Raymond Smith, and to the grandparents, Tom and Clarissa Smith, and the Johnsons, Bob and Mabel Jones. Okay, so right there, you found the mother's maiden name. Okay, so with the mother's maiden name, then you can apply for the birth certificate. Okay, once you're given the birth certificate, then you can start building the ID or your new identity from that basis. Let's just say you were the person who's doing it was 30 years old. So basically, you've got a problem that the identity or the child has been basically deceased for 30 years, and so they've applied for no social insurance number, no driver's license. They've never filed a tax return, anything, no medical card. Okay. So what you do is you simply, when you get the birth certificate, you go to the office, okay, the medical services offices, or in British Columbia, the BC services offices, and you simply apply. And if they were to ask, well, how come, you're 30 years old and you don't have a social insurance number? It seems odd because most people, they get their social insurance number when they're teenagers, right? But you simply explain to them that